Why the name Inazuma 11, or Super Onze as many fans lovingly know it, still sparks nostalgia and wonder in the hearts of anime lovers worldwide. It wasn't just an anime about football. No, it was something far beyond that. It was a saga of magic, emotion, power, and passion. From the very first time we see Endou Mamoru's unwavering smile, we realize that this isn't going to be just another sports anime. It's going to be a journey, a storm. And believe it or not, there's more hidden beneath the surface of this electric tale than most fans know. So grab your old Raimon jersey, because we're diving deep into the craziest secrets and jaw-dropping curiosities of Inazuma 11. Do you remember that dusty old shed behind Raimon Junior High where the club first gathered? That place wasn't just a plot device, it was actually based on Level 5's real office garage where the creators first brainstormed the anime and game. Talk about poetic storytelling. From humble beginnings, both the fictional team and the real-life developers were underdogs, fighting to be seen, heard, and believed in. The story of Endou rallying his team mirrors the journey of the production team that brought Inazuma 11 to life. The emotion is real. You just didn't realize it until now.
But let's talk about the main man himself, Endou Mamoru, the eternal optimist, the never-say-die goalkeeper with hands of lightning and a heart of gold. Did you know that his character was actually inspired by legendary Japanese goalkeeper Yoshikatsu Kawaguchi? The creators wanted a hero who could represent unwavering spirit and inspiration, someone who didn't have flashy skills at first, but made up for it with sheer willpower. And that's why Endou never gives up, because giving up was never part of the original game plan. As the story evolves, we're introduced to other unforgettable legends. Gouenji, the fire-kicking striker with a troubled past. Kidou, the genius tactician behind the visor. Kazemaru, the speedy runner with wind in his soul. Each one of them carries more than just flashy techniques and killer moves. They carry stories. Gouenji's backstory, involving his sister's coma, wasn't just thrown in for drama. It was designed to echo the sacrifices athletes make when chasing greatness. He steps away from football to be with his family, but the fire within him never dies. That's not fiction. That's passion incarnate. Let's talk techniques, though, because if there's anything Inazuma 11 did better than most anime, it was turning football into an epic, godlike battleground. Moves like Fire Tornado, God Hand, and the Inazuma Drop weren't just random names slapped onto kicks. Many of these techniques were inspired by Japanese mythology, old martial arts terminologies, even wrestling. Yes, wrestling. The Inazuma Drop, for instance, is a nod to classic tag team slams seen in Japanese pro wrestling, while Heaven's Time draws inspiration from tales of divine judgment, slowing time to deliver a righteous blow.
And then there's the soundtrack. Oh, the soundtrack. That opening theme, Tachiaga Ryo, is more than a song. It's a battle cry. When those first chords hit and you see Endou yelling with the wind blowing through his headband, you feel ready to take on the world. Not many fans know this, but the original voice actor for Endou, Junko Takeuchi, who also voiced Naruto, actually fought hard to keep the same energy across every single episode, sometimes redoing scenes up to 5 times to keep the passion real. That's dedication. That's what made Inazuma 11 hit different. But behind the lightning-fast dribbles and elemental shots lies a darker, hidden layer of the story. Have you ever wondered why the stakes in the series feel so much more intense than regular football? That's because the creators' subtly woven themes of corruption, control, and rebellion. The 5th sector arc in Inazuma 11 Go isn't just about fixing a rigged system in football. It's a metaphor for society's tendency to control talent, to predetermine winners and losers. It asks the viewer, what does it mean to play for real? And more importantly, who decides what winning really means? This message isn't just for the characters. It's for you, the viewer. Because at its heart, Inazuma 11 was never just about football. It was about fighting for your dreams when the whole world tells you to quit. Every shot they take is a declaration. Every save is defiance. Every loss is a lesson. That's the real magic of Super Onze. It wasn't just an anime with cool kicks, it was a storm of hope disguised as a sports story. And we're just getting started.
As Ramon's flame began to rise, so did the shadows that loomed around it. Inazuma 11 knew how to pull you into its glowing light of inspiration, only to remind you that light always casts shadows. For every hero, there was a rival. And some of these rivals weren't just opponents on the field, they were reflections, warped mirrors of the protagonists. Remember the first time you saw Keikoku Gakuen take the field? The sheer pressure, the overwhelming force, the way they played like a machine. That wasn't just animation, that was the deliberate birth of fear. Kidou Yuto, once a strategist for Teikoku, wasn't just a defector. He was a symbol of rebellion against a system of control. His evolution from cold tactician to passionate teammate was carefully mapped to parallel the theme of breaking free from expectations. But here's the hidden twist most fans missed. His visor. That iconic accessory? It was inspired by ancient Japanese war generals who wore masks to conceal their emotions in battle. Kidou's visor wasn't just style. It was armor. Emotional, mental armor forged by a boy forced to lead too soon.
And speaking of rivals, who could forget the arrival of Fubuki Shiro? His introduction sent shivers down everyone's spine. The shy, polite forward from Hokkaido with a past wrapped in tragedy. What fans didn't immediately realize is that Fubuki wasn't just dealing with grief, he was battling identity disorder. The fusion of his brother Atsuya's personality with his own wasn't just a dramatic flair, it was a psychological metaphor. The idea of living up to someone else's expectations, of carrying the spirit of a lost loved one, of feeling not whole unless you're being someone else. It hit deeper than most anime dared to go. Now let's talk about those god-tier moves, because you can't talk about Inazuma 11 without talking about the techniques that shattered the laws of physics. Ever wondered how some of them were born? The truth is, many were created through improvisation during animation planning. The animators would storyboard dramatic angles first and then retroactively design the move around the spectacle. That's why some shots feel so intense. They were imagined like action movie scenes before the sport even came into play. Take Emperor Penguin No. 2, for example. That brutal, synchronized triple shot move wasn't just for show. Penguins, yes, actual penguins, were studied for their group hunting techniques. The animators wanted to replicate that eerie, unified movement. The result? A shot that looked like a flock of predators charging in formation. And the naming? No. 2 implies there's a No. 1, which there is, and it's even more dangerous. But fans often overlook the symbolism. Penguins thrive in harsh environments. The move was meant to represent cold, unstoppable teamwork, emotionless, precise, and deadly. The show also plays with myth and mysticism. Moves like the Phoenix, Odin's Sword, and Chaos Break were all nods to mythological creatures and gods. These weren't just fancy names, they were designed to match the personality of each team. For instance, Aliyah Gakuen's teams used celestial and alien-themed moves to reflect their otherworldly power. It wasn't about aliens, it was about invincibility, about characters becoming something no one could understand or reach. And let's not forget the insane escalation of power. At one point, football was no longer just a game, it was a cosmic event. Players summoned dragons, cracked the sky, and ran faster than sound. Some critics say it was over the top, but true fans know better. Inazuma 11 never wanted to be realistic. It wanted to be legendary, and legends aren't bound by gravity or logic. Even the character arcs were designed like RPGs. Did you know that Level 5 originally planned Inazuma 11 as a role-playing game long before the anime was even pitched? That's why the teams feel like bosses. That's why each match feels like a dungeon, with emotional stakes, climactic music, and unpredictable challenges. The narrative structure was deeply influenced by video game design.
That's also why so many matches introduce new moves mid-game, like unlocking a special ability at the final hour. And speaking of abilities, let's talk about Kote Penguin No 1. That sinister, sharp-edged shot wasn't just a technique, it was a symbol of pressure, of systems that train children not to play, but to win at all costs. The game at that point had shifted. It wasn't fun anymore, it was war. And through all of that, Endou Mamoru stood firm, the boy who smiled through the storm. His signature move, God Hand, wasn't just about stopping shots, it was about protecting dreams.
If you ever found yourself tearing up watching a simple football game turned emotional battlefield, don't feel silly. That's what Inazuma 11 did best. It made emotions explode like super shots. It turned feelings into flames. And as the Raymon 11 started to change the world around them, the show began whispering a deeper message. Sometimes the strongest moves don't come from strength. They come from heart. Just when you thought Raymond had conquered every challenge, every rival, and every emotional storm, a new threat emerged. But this time, it wasn't a stronger team or a powerful new shot. It was time itself. Inazuma 11 Go wasn't just a sequel, it was a bold leap into the future. Years had passed, heroes had become legends, and a new generation of players stepped onto the pitch. But the echoes of the past were far from silent. Tenma Matsukaze, a boy full of wonder and shoes that couldn't stop moving, was the perfect heir to Endou's legacy. Unlike his predecessor, Tenma didn't begin as a goalkeeper or even a tactical genius. He was just a boy who loved football with every beat of his heart. But in a world where the beautiful game had become a machine of control, Tenma's purity made him dangerous. And that's where the story turned from inspiring to dystopian.
The fifth sector, a system that dictated every match's outcome. Wins and losses weren't earned, they were assigned. Players weren't allowed to play freely. Talent was regulated. Passion was forbidden. What should have been a golden age of football had become a cold empire of results. But here's the terrifying twist most fans didn't notice. The fifth sector wasn't just fiction. It was inspired by real scandals in professional sports. Match fixing, corrupt federations, and the idea that sometimes power has more influence than skill. The writers weren't just telling a story, they were sending a warning. And then came a betrayal that shattered fans around the world. Endou, the unshakable hero, the eternal smile, was now a coach. And worse, he was aligned with Fifth Sector. It felt wrong. It felt like a betrayal. But beneath that betrayal lay one of the show's most brilliant plot devices. Because sometimes even heroes must play the villain to protect a greater dream. Endou hadn't changed. He was fighting from within, trying to fix a broken system without destroying it entirely. That gray morality, that complexity, it's what elevated Inazuma 11 from a kids show to a saga that dared to challenge your view of right and wrong. As Tenma assembled his own team, echoes of the past began to return. Tsurugi Kyosuke, the quiet striker with a dark aura and a blade-like style, seemed almost like a shadow version of Gouenji. But Tsurugi's pain ran deeper. His brother was in prison, wrongfully accused, and Kyosuke played not to win, but to fight, to resist. Each shot he took was fueled by rage. But as the series unfolded, we saw that rage transform into purpose. His evolution wasn't just personal, it mirrored the journey of the game itself, from something controlled by fear to something reclaimed by freedom.
And let's not forget Shindo Takuto, the strategist whose intelligence rivaled even Kidou's. With the aura of a prodigy and the discipline of a conductor, he became the brain behind the revolution. His tactics weren't just calculated, they were symphonic. Many fans don't know this, but Shindo's entire character was inspired by classical music composers. That's why his moves, like Fortissimo and Maestro, are designed like musical crescendos, attacks that build in rhythm and then explode in harmony.
One of the most underrated aspects of Inazuma 11 Go was the introduction of Avatar Armed, fusing with your fighting spirit to enter an almost godlike state. Some fans saw it as just another power-up, but it was far more. It was the physical manifestation of will. Each player's avatar wasn't just a tool, it was their soul given form. The design of these spirits drew from mythology, astrology, and even historical warlords. When Tenma awakened Manjin Pegasus, it wasn't just a nod to Endou's old technique. It was the universe telling us the torch has been passed. Yet, beneath all the action and energy, Inazuma 11 Go was whispering something profound, that the true battle isn't on the field, it's in the heart. In a world where results are everything, can you still play for joy? In a system that fears passion, can you still burn bright? Every character answered that question in their own way. And as the story marched forward, the lines between good and evil blurred even more. Because, as it turns out, the biggest villains weren't always evil, and the greatest heroes weren't always perfect. Characters like Ishido Shuji, once feared as a puppet master, revealed pasts full of sorrow, regret, and twisted ideals. These were not just antagonists, they were lost souls who believed the world needed control to avoid chaos. But Tenma showed them otherwise, that chaos, when born from freedom, is not destruction, it's evolution.
This message resonated with fans deeply, especially those who, like Tenma, had ever been told that their dreams were too loud, too wild, or too unrealistic. Inazuma 11 Go reminded us that dreams are meant to be untamed, that every shot you take in life should be yours, not handed to you by a system. And if you've ever stood against something bigger than yourself, if you've ever dared to chase the impossible, then you understand why Tenma's story wasn't just a continuation, it was a revolution. By the time the world of Inazuma 11 entered the age of Go Galaxy, fans thought they had seen it all. Players merging with spirits, kicking balls that split the sky, saving football from tyrants. But then came a twist that no one could have predicted. Earth versus the universe, a tournament not just for glory, but for survival. At first glance, it felt wild, even absurd. Football to decide the fate of the planet? But deep down, it was the perfect metaphor. Because for these characters, football was never just a game. It was their world. Go Galaxy introduced us to a brand new cast. Unfamiliar, unpredictable, and at first, even frustrating. Some fans felt disconnected. Where were the familiar faces? Where was Tenma's team? But that was the point. The story wanted to remind us of something crucial. Heroes rise in every generation, but they don't always look the same. Sometimes they stumble, sometimes they doubt, but that's what makes them real. The team assembled by Resistance against the international selection process wasn't built on fame or past victories. It was built on raw, misunderstood talent. Characters like Mataragi Hayato, the wind-sprinting loner, or Manaho Kazuto, the calculating observer, didn't immediately shine. But as the story unfolded, their potential exploded. Just like the original Raymon team, they grew together through struggle, not perfection.
And then, just when fans began to feel the nostalgia tug, the legends returned. Endou, Gouenji, Kidou, Fubuki, Tsunoi, even Aphrodite. They didn't just make cameos, they came back as mentors, guardians, and echoes of the past. Seeing Endou pass the torch with pride, watching Gouenji wear a doctor's coat while still training strikers, it was a reminder that even storms must one day become guiding winds. But the most powerful moment? It wasn't a shot. It wasn't a goal. It was a look. That moment when Tenma, older, wiser, but still burning with passion, stands on the sideline and watches the next generation take the field. That look said everything. That football, real, raw, rebellious football had survived. That the flame had not only endured but spread. Behind the scenes, Inazuma 11's creators were walking their own tightrope.
The anime had grown from a modest project into a global franchise, but with that came pressure. How do you keep football magical when you've already broken every law of nature? Their answer was simple. Go back to the heart. That's why Eris no Tenbin and Orion no Kukuin later returned to a more grounded style. Fewer spirits, more strategy, more humanity. In these arcs, we learned more about countries around the world, each with their own football philosophies. And it wasn't just stereotypes, it was a celebration of diversity. Brazil, Italy, China, America, each team brought unique flair and values, and in doing so, the story began asking deeper questions. What does football mean in different cultures? Is it style? Is it pride? Is it unity? And through it all, the players of Inazuma stood as messengers, bridging worlds, breaking barriers.
Perhaps the most beautiful message of Inazuma 11 is this: no one plays alone. Every pass carries trust. Every assist is a silent promise. Every goal is a shared heartbeat. You may wear one jersey, but you carry thousands of voices with you. The voices of teammates, coaches, fans, even rivals. In the Inazuma world, opponents aren't enemies. They're the ones who make you stronger, who push you to your limit and beyond. Many fans still hold out hope for Inazuma 11 Victory Road, a new title long in the making. Delayed, rebuilt, redesigned, much like the players themselves. But maybe that's the perfect symbol for what this franchise has always stood for. Resilience, a refusal to quit, a dream that evolves but never fades. The storm may have quieted, but the sparks are still there, waiting to ignite again. So if you ever feel like giving up on something you love, if you ever feel like your dreams are too impossible, too heavy, or too strange, remember this. Once upon a time, a bunch of middle schoolers kicked a flaming ball through a tornado, summoned gods, and changed the world. Not because they were born special, but because they believed. That's the legacy of Inazuma 11. That's the flame of Super Onze. And as long as someone, somewhere, still dares to play with heart, that flame will never go out.